Jalanum, my name is David Peterson, and this is The Art of Language Invention. Episode 19, Vowel Harmony. Vowel harmony is among my top three, probably top one favorite morphophonological phenomena in language. Vowel harmony is just the best. I absolutely love it. What vowel harmony is vowel harmony is a very specific type of assimilation. And I'll give you an example from Finnish. So in Finnish, there's this, I think I probably mentioned this one before, there's a little suffix that takes a verb and turns it into a yes-no question. So if puhun is I speak, then puhunko is do I speak. And you have a ko suffix, keo. If you do a different type of word, say imarran, which is I understand, then to say do I understand, you would say imarrankö. Good is now the suffix. Sorry, kö. That is K with an O with two dots over it, which is a front round mid vowel. A front round mid vowel in Finnish. Anyway. So what's happening is that basically the vowel in this suffix is changing in the second word to be more like the vowels that came before it. The theory behind vowel harmony in general is that there is some feature from a previous vowel in a word that is passing on to a succeeding vowel, or in the case of a prefix, a feature from the first vowel is being passed backwards to the initial vowel, because vowel harmony can go in both directions. So anyway, the idea, I guess, the way that's made the most sense for me is something like gestural phonology, which was a theory that didn't even look at segments. It looked at what was going on in the mouth. So, for example, you have a bunch of articulators in your mouth. You have a velum, and the velum lowering and raising is one type of gesture. Similarly with the tongue moving to a various part of the mouth is also another type of gesture. So if their description or their way of describing how nasal vowels come into being is that there is a gesture, let's say you're going from an oral vowel to a nasal consonant, there is a gesture that's involved with you changing where your tongue is, moving from the vowel to the consonant. And then there's also a gesture that involves the velum going from closed to open. The nasal vowel occurs when the velum lowers before the tongue has moved from its vowel position to its consonantal position. And so then you have some bleed, essentially, and that results in a nasal vowel. Looking back at our Finnish example, the idea is that you have this gesture that's taking place, or a couple of gestures that's taking place. Essentially, you have the tongue body that has to get into position to make the O vowel. You also have the lips that need to round to make the O vowel. The idea is that when you're saying imarran, your tongue body is far forward because the vowels in that word are far forward. And in Finnish, essentially the lip rounding happens first before the tongue body got a chance to go backwards. And so whereas people, I guess, should have in the very, very olden days, they should have been saying imarranko, enough people started saying imarrankö that people kind of heard it, it sounded normal, they started repeating it, and then before you know it, Finnish has vowel harmony. And of course it has it all over the entire language, not just in that one little place, but that's a convenient example. That's the basic idea behind vowel harmony, so now let's look at a couple of specific examples. So starting with Finnish, since we started there, Finnish essentially has two different sets of vowels. They have a regular set of vowels, your usual a, e, I, o, u, and then they have a so-called fronted set of vowels. It's just like a, e, I, o, u, except they're all fronted. So it's a, e, I, o, U. You'll notice that two of these vowels are identical. That would be E and E. We'll talk about those later. The other ones, they're all the appropriate rounding that they should be. So unrounded for the low vowel and rounded for the two non-low vowels, but they're all forward. So U is a high front rounded vowel, is a mid front rounded vowel, and A is an unrounded fronted low vowel. So when you have a word in Finnish, essentially you have to use all the vowels from one set or the other. And then when you add a suffix, that suffix uses the vowel that's associated with the particular set. Thus, you get a difference between ko, which is added to the regular vowels, and g, which is added to the fronted vowels. Turkish has two different types of harmony. Turkish has 8 vowels and could have 2 perfect vowel harmony systems, but for whatever reason with the low vowels they only do 2. So with the low vowels you have basic front-back harmony. So both of the vowels that you get are the same height. They're not really, but they're the same height category. That is, they are non-high and they are both unrounded. The difference is whether they're front or back. So you have e for the front vowel and a for the back vowel. And we can see this in, for example, the the plural. Yeah, so we have çocuk, which means child, and children is çocuklar. Back vowel, o, u, so you get the back vowel lar suffix. For a front vowel one, there's the word for village, köy. Köy is village, and then plural, köyler, that's villages. You get the e suffix, or the ler version of the suffix because you have a front vowel ö. Doesn't matter that it's rounded. For the high vowels, you actually see complete and total harmony. So I'll do the accusative suffix here, or the definite accusative suffix that you get with Turkish. No real difference in the meaning, so it'd be nice if there was a convenient way that you could say this is this word, but in the accusative. We just don't have an accusative case in English. Bah. Anyway, so with the various words we have, so we have çocuk becomes çocuğu. Some other phonology happening here. The K turns into a R, which disappears, and so you just get U like that. But anyway, so you have, you're following a back rounded high vowel, so you get U, back rounded high vowel. Next, köy, köy. So it's front rounded, so you get the front rounded high vowel, U. And this is, of course, child and children. Next, el is hand. Eli is hands. Eli is hand in the accusative. So you get the front unrounded high vowel after a front unrounded vowel. And lastly, kitap is book. And so in the accusative, you have kitabı. And that dotless I is a high unrounded back vowel. Another possible harmony variant is what we call height harmony. A very nice example comes from Moro, which is a language spoken in Sudan. Moro has 6 vowel phonemes, and they come in high-low pairs. That is, it's not necessarily that the low vowels are always going to be low. They're just going to be lower than its pair. So you have E versus E. You have schwa versus a. And then you have U versus O. And so when there are suffixes and prefixes, you get a matching vowel that matches with the vowels in the word in question. So 2 words, uji means boy and obwa means woman. If you add the instrumental suffix, you get ujiga with a schwa, means by the boy. And to woman, you get obwara, and that's by the woman, and you get the low version of the suffix. It also works with prefixes. So one of their inessive cases, or something having to do with inessive, ikuji means in the boy, and ikowa means in the woman. Very nice little symmetrical system. Absolutely love this one. And there are, of course, tons of other variants where you see the suffixes and the prefixes changing in this language. A very common type of harmony that you see in West Africa especially is ATR harmony. ATR stands for Advanced Tongue Root. And effectively you can take all the vowels and separate them into variants of one another based on whether they are plus ATR or minus ATR. The usual vowels that have these pairs are, for example, these. So you have E versus I, U versus O, A versus E, O versus O, and versus A. Logically, there are going to be others, but these are the ones that you see most often. In fact, the ones you see more often than not is for these ATR systems is to have just ATR harmony with the middle vowels. So A versus E and O versus O, and then no ATR harmony anywhere else. Then as you just have like usually plus ATR high vowels and minus ATR low vowels that will interact in the way that one would expect. So in other words, the plus ATR vowels will, the high vowels will pass on plus ATR genes, as it were, and the low ones minus ATR. To give you an example, I have something from the language Ani, which is a Niger-Congo language. So we have tongo, which means to transport, and that becomes utongo, transportation. Then we have fuba, which means to change, and ufubo, which means changing. You also see it with the class prefixes. Since this is a Niger-Congo language, it has noun classes and noun class prefixes. They'll be the same exact prefix, but depending on the root that they affix to, they'll show up in one of two ways. So, for example, ilo is strings, but ije is yams. Another system I wanted to mention because it's kind of fun is nasal harmony. Nasal harmony is when usually an initial nasal consonant causes the following vowel to become nasalized, and then that nasalization spreads to all other nasal vowels that follow it. It's pretty cool. It doesn't happen in a lot of languages, but it does happen in some. So here are some examples from what I'm reading is the Johore dialect of Malay. I really hope I pronounced that city name right. So we have bangon, to rise, mayang, palm stalk of a palm tree, I'm guessing, and munawan. Oh gosh, I'm terrible at this. Munawan, to capture. So especially with that first one, you can see you have basically progressive nasal assimilation. The nasal vowel comes after the nasal consonant, and then it stops. It's not on the previous one. And then you can see it passing through for the second and the third one. There are other types of harmony, for example, like consonant harmony, palatal harmony, but in this video I wanted to focus on vowel harmony. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was neutral vowels and blockers, or basically what can block harmony, because things can. So for example, in Finnish we saw that there's the two different sets of vowels, but that two of the vowels are the same in both sets, the E and A. Those vowels are neutral with respect to harmony, meaning that they essentially just pass harmony right through them. So for example, in Finnish you have a word like yhdessä, which means together. It's just as one. It's a case suffix applied to the word one, and you get yhdessä with the a on the end. But also you have a word like hotelli, a borrowing, but still you see that it starts with an o vowel in the regular set, and then it has e and I in the middle. And when you say it's in the hotel, it's hotellissa. So not hotellissa, even though there's an e and an e that comes right before the vowel. The o essentially passes its features, I guess, right on through the neutral vowels and passes them on to the final vowel. When a word begins with one of these two neutral vowels, e or e, they usually have their own quality, and that's generally the way it is with vowel harmony. If there are any of these neutral vowels, they generally have their own quality. So e and e would still be pass on fronted vowels, except that it's not always the case that it does that. So for example, a very common word in Finnish is the word for meat, which is liha, not liha, as one would expect. So it's just a bizarre little quirk that for you to remember when you're making your vowel harmony system. Vowel harmony can also be blocked. The usual place where vowel harmony is blocked is, of course, at a word boundary. That is, you can imagine if, like, for example, there was a fronted word that began a word in Finnish every single word in the entire sentence would have to be filled with fronted vowels and everything would sound like so no. At the end of a word, that's where vowel harmony stops. That's the end of its domain. That also applies most often to compounds. So compound words. If you have one word in the compound has fronted vowels and the other word in the compound has non-fronted vowels, you just put them together and you don't change the vowels of either word. This is pretty much the case for all vowel harmony languages I've looked at. Probably the only time you'd expect that to change is if the compound is so old that people have in effect forgotten it's a compound. And then this leads to really bizarre words. Like one of my most favorite words in all of Finnish, goodness gracious, myymälä auto, mobile shop. So you have, it's obvious compound here because you have auto, which, comes from auto, and it has the regular vowels. And then this word, myymälä. And so then you have the A with the umlaut right before an A without an umlaut. How can you do that, Finnish? Go home. You're drunk. Myymälä auto. It actually doesn't sound funny when you say it. It only looks funny when you look at it, but whatever. Harmony is also usually blocked with borrowings. So the astute observer, remembering the Turkish examples that we went over, would probably notice that the word for book was actually disharmonic. So the word is kitap, not gıtap. One would expect gıtap because the a is unrounded. Either that or maybe it changed to, I don't know, kitep? Yeah, kitep. That would probably be the usual one I think I would expect because the one would push it. But you don't get that. You get kitap. This is because the word is borrowed directly from Arabic where the word is kitab. And rather than changing the vowels, they basically left them as the disharmonic vowels they are and borrowed the word on over. You will note, though, that when it takes suffixes, it takes the suffix, it takes the vowel quality from the preceding vowel and the preceding vowel only. So it's the a in kitab that is governing the vowel harmony that follows, or that is applied to all of the suffixes that follow the root. Finally, though Finnish does have neutral vowels, you could also imagine that the vowels wouldn't be neutral and might actually stop, say, the regular vowel harmony and just push fronted vowel harmony immediately after it, so that you would get something like hotellissa, because you have these fronted vowels in the middle. It could do that. It doesn't happen to, but it could happen in a potential vowel harmony language. And there are also other things word internally that can block a vowel. That can block the spread of vowel harmony. A nice example is nasal harmony, which gets blocked by just about everything, depending on the language. So going back to Malay, just about everything blocks the spread of nasality on vowels. The only thing that doesn't is, another vowel and also a glide. So any other type of consonant will actually block the spread of the nasal vowel, as shown with the verb to eat, which is makan, and the word supervision, pengawasan. So you see that the S there blocks the spread of vowel nasalization in the last word, the word for supervision, and the K blocks it in the word for to eat. And if you go back to gestural phonology, you can imagine why this is the case. That is, you can keep your velum lowered for all of these consonants, or for a vowel, and then for a glide, sure, why not? But then as soon as it hits a consonant, suddenly your velum has to do something else. To produce a K, your velum has to be raised. And if you're raising the velum to pronounce this K, well, then you might as well keep it there. But of course, there are some languages with nasal harmony where something like a K would not block the spread of nasal harmony. I've seen basically all oral stops blocking nasal harmony. I've seen stops and liquids. I've seen nothing blocking nasal harmony except for stops. I've also seen nothing blocking nasal harmony except for consonants that were further back than the velum. So glottal consonants, and even though this language didn't have it presumably pharyngeal consonants or epiglottal consonants. Anyway, so something to keep in mind is what is going to break your harmony when you're creating a vowel harmony system for your language. Also, if you're thinking about how these systems evolved, if you look at something like Turkish and something like Finnish, there's not really any competition with these suffixes when it comes to vowels. That is, with the Turkish accusative suffix. It's not like at one point in time in the distant past, Turkish had a separate E suffix and a separate U suffix and maybe even a separate U and I suffix. It couldn't work like that. If those vowels needed to be distinguished, then they would have to be distinguished. Otherwise, vowel harmony would totally destroy the distinction that was being made by these suffixes. So think about that when designing your grammar, and basically anytime you have any type of affixes, you're not going to be doing something like Latin does with its declension endings if you want vowel harmony. Otherwise, the harmony is just going to destroy the system, which, it could do, but it just seems less likely that that would happen rather than the system supporting the evolution of vowel harmony. Remember that the key to inventing a vowel harmony system is that it's basically assimilation. So the vowel itself is passing on some feature to make the other vowels that come after it or before it more like that vowel. That's the key to vowel harmony. Now, because there aren't really as many vowels as, say, there are consonants, or at least distinguishable vowel phonemes, vowel systems are smaller than consonantal systems, there's probably like no imaginable vowel harmony system that hasn't been attested somewhere. You'll find it somewhere. So it's going to be hard for you to invent something new, but whatever. Just have fun with it. As long as you're adhering to this idea that vowel harmony is basically assimilation and making the rest of the vowels easier to pronounce, then you're probably on the right track. So have fun with it. That's it for this episode. If you have a question that you'd like for me to answer on the show, leave it in the comments or send me an email at djpquery@gmail.com. If you want to see more episodes like this one, feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching.